Elena was just a street vendor raising her nephew when a simple act of kindness changed everything. She met a mysterious old woman, moved into a mansion, and faced off with the arrogant heir Damien, who never expected to fall for her. From fiery arguments to tender confessions, a secret pregnancy, and a love neither of them saw coming, their story is full of twists, heartache, and redemption. Who is Elena really, and how did she end up changing a billionaire's life forever? Where are you watching from? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more powerful African stories. The sun blazed over the dusty sidewalk where Elena Hart sat behind her modest food cart, fanning herself with a bent piece of cardboard. Milo, her 5-year-old nephew, was curled up beside her on a flattened rice sack, his tiny chest rising and falling in gentle rhythm. She glanced down at him with a faint smile, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "You deserve so much more, sweetheart," she whispered. Business was slow that day. Just a trickle of regulars buying boiled corn and rice cakes. Elena didn't mind. Any income meant a meal, a roof, maybe even a new pair of shoes for Milo. As she adjusted the lid on her steaming pot, a raspy voice startled her. "Miss, do you have anything to eat? I'm so hungry." Elena looked up to find a frail elderly woman in worn slippers, her clothes tattered but eyes sharp. Without hesitation, Elena grabbed a warm rice cake and a plastic cup of water. "Here, ma'am. Sit here, it's shaded." She helped the woman settle onto an overturned crate. "You're kind," the old woman said between bites. "What's your name?" "Elena." "Beautiful name," the woman replied with a soft smile. Her gaze wandered to Milo. "Is that your boy?" "My nephew," Elena replied, kneeling beside him. "But he calls me Mom. His real one, my sister, passed away during childbirth. It's just us now." The woman stared quietly, a flicker of emotion crossing her wrinkled face. "I'm Estelle," she said at last. "I've been sleeping in a market shed. No family left. Would it be too much to ask if I could stay with you, just for a while?" Elena blinked, startled by the sudden request. But something in Estelle's tone, dignified yet vulnerable, tugged at her heart. "I don't have much," she said slowly, "but you're welcome to stay with us. We make do." That evening, Elena brought Estelle home to their tiny one-room apartment with a leaking tin roof and patchy curtains for doors. Milo, always quick to warm up, greeted her with a shy, "Hi, Grandma Estelle." Estelle's eyes watered. The next morning, Estelle insisted on walking Milo to the nearby sidewalk school while Elena set up her stall. Days passed. Estelle wasn't just a guest. She swept the floor, watched Milo, and even fixed a broken drawer with surprising skill. Then, after a week, as they sat sharing dinner, Estelle cleared her throat. "Elena, it's time I returned to my home. I want you and Milo to come with me." Elena laughed. "You have a home?" "I do. I left it when my heart broke. But it's time I go back, and you two, you belong there now." Before Elena could protest, a sleek black car pulled up outside. Milo's eyes widened. Elena's jaw dropped. "What is this?" she asked. "Just trust me," Estelle said, motioning to the car. Inside, the cool leather seats made Milo giggle. "It smells fancy in here," he exclaimed. Elena sat stiffly, still in disbelief. The car wound through the city, leaving the rundown neighborhoods behind and climbing into a gated suburb of mansions. When they pulled up to an estate that looked plucked from a movie set, Elena couldn't speak. The front doors opened and a tall, broad-shouldered man stepped out, his features chiseled, his stare ice-cold. "Grandma," he said flatly, "I see you've brought guests." Estelle scoffed. "Nice to see you too, Damien. These are my new family." Damien narrowed his eyes. "New grandkids? What is this? Some charity project?" Elena stepped forward, chin raised. "Watch your mouth. You don't know us." "Don't get comfortable," he muttered, brushing past. Elena slapped him, loud, unapologetic. The silence that followed was thunderous. Estelle burst out laughing. "About time someone shut that mouth of yours." As Damien stood stunned, rubbing his cheek, Elena took Milo's hand. "We're not here for your money. We're here because your grandmother has more heart than you ever will." That night, as they settled into the guest wing of the mansion, Elena still couldn't believe where they were, or what kind of storm she had just walked into. But one thing was certain. She wasn't afraid. Not of Damien Voss, not of his scowls or sharp tongue. She'd faced worse. She had a child to raise, and now perhaps a new chapter to begin. The first morning in the Voss mansion, Elena woke to the scent of jasmine and polished wood. Milo was still curled up beside her, his tiny frame tucked into the plush comforter. She tiptoed out of the room, determined to repay their hosts with effort. If they were going to live here, even temporarily, she refused to be seen as a freeloader. She found the storage room, grabbed a broom and a rag, and began cleaning the hallway like it was second nature. "Starting your maid duties already?" A low voice mocked behind her. Elena turned to find Damien Voss leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, coffee in hand, looking infuriatingly smug in a black silk robe. "I'm not a maid. I'm working for what we've been given," she replied coolly. Damien walked closer, his gaze narrowing. "No one asked you to. If you're trying to impress my grandmother, save your breath. She gets attached easily." Elena straightened. "I'm not here to impress anyone. Unlike you, I don't like relying on other people's money." That earned her a faint smirk. "You've got quite the mouth for someone living under my roof." "Correction," she said, stepping past him. "I'm living under Estelle's roof. You just happen to haunt the place." He raised his brow as she brushed by, but didn't reply. That alone felt like a victory. Over the next few days, their clashes became a routine. Damien would make a sarcastic comment, Elena would throw it back with double the sting. Milo watched them like he was seeing a cartoon, half amused, half confused. One afternoon, Estelle found Elena polishing antique figurines in the sunroom. "You're working too hard, dear," she said gently. "You don't have to prove anything." "I'm not proving anything," Elena replied, not looking up. "I'm just keeping my dignity." Estelle smiled, clearly understanding more than Elena said. "You remind me of my younger self." Elena chuckled. "Were you ever young?" "Oh, I was a hellraiser. Just ask Damien. Not that he listens to women." At that, Elena snorted. "He's got the emotional range of a shoehorn." They both laughed, but the moment shifted when Estelle grew quiet. "He wasn't always like this," she said. "After his parents died, I gave him everything to numb the pain. I thought it would make things easier, but it only made him harder." Elena set down the rag and sat beside her. "Have you told him that?" "I've tried, but he's convinced he's too broken to fix." Their conversation was cut short by the sound of stumbling. Damien burst into the room, clearly drunk, a half-empty bottle in one hand. "You're trying to replace me," he slurred, pointing at Elena. "You brought her here to, what, be the child you never had?" "Damien," Estelle shouted. "You're drunk. Go sleep it off." He staggered, nearly falling. Elena rushed forward, catching him just before he hit the floor. His weight nearly dragged her down. "Don't touch me," he barked, though his grip on her arm said otherwise. "You're going to crack your skull open if I let go," she hissed. With Estelle's help, they guided him upstairs. His room was a disaster, clothes everywhere, the smell of whiskey soaked into the walls. Elena helped him into bed, but just as she turned to leave, Damien grabbed her wrist and yanked her down beside him. "You like me, don't you?" he said, grinning lazily. "You're staying because you want me." Elena's eyes narrowed. "You're disgusting." "You're not leaving," he muttered, voice slurring, "because you're waiting for me to notice you." That was the last straw. She bit his lower lip, hard. Damien yelped and loosened his grip. Before he could react, she kneed him between the legs. "You ever touch me like that again," she snarled, "I'll make sure you can't have heirs to your precious empire." He rolled onto his side, groaning in pain. "You witch," he wheezed. "Better a witch than a wasted legacy," she snapped, slamming the door behind her. Back in her room, Elena tried to shake the whole thing off. Milo stirred in his sleep, and she lay beside him, smoothing his hair. "You deserve better than this mess," she whispered. "But if I have to stand between you and chaos, I will." Downstairs, Estelle sat quietly in the dark, sipping her tea. She had seen it all, and despite the chaos, she couldn't help but smile. Damien had finally met his match. The days passed with uneasy rhythm, like a waltz between stubborn hearts. Elena tried her best to keep her distance from Damien, but the mansion wasn't exactly massive when you were constantly bumping into the same tall, brooding figure. Still, her focus remained on Milo. He had new clothes now, a clean bed, warm food, and, thanks to Estelle's insistence, a place in a nearby preschool. For the first time since her sister's death, Elena felt like she was giving him a real shot at something better. Damien, to her surprise, didn't interfere. In fact, one morning, he was waiting outside the breakfast room with car keys in hand. "I'll take Milo to school today," he said flatly. Elena blinked. "Why?" "Because your bus routes suck. And it's raining." She stared at him suspiciously. "You're not planning to leave him in a jungle, are you?" He rolled his eyes. "I'm trying to help. You don't always have to bite." Against her instincts, she agreed. Watching Damien buckle Milo into the car seat and actually check the straps made something in her chest twitch. She brushed it off. That afternoon, Damien showed up at the school even before classes ended. Elena found him sitting on the bench outside, chatting with one of the parents while Milo played on the swings. "You're early," she said. "I finished work." "You don't have a job." "I said I finished," he replied with that half smirk that always made her want to slap and kiss him in the same breath. The next day, Damien invited them to the mall, claiming Milo needed shoes. What he didn't say was that he also wanted to try something new, a family shirt trio. Elena resisted at first, rolling her eyes at the idea. "We'll look ridiculous." "We'll look coordinated," Damien corrected, holding up matching pink shirts that read Mom, Dad, and Dino Kid. Milo clapped with joy. Elena sighed. "Fine, but I draw the line at glitter." They wore the shirts the next morning to family day at school, drawing admiring stares from teachers and parents alike. "You have such a lovely family," one mother whispered to her husband as they walked by. Damien leaned over and whispered to Elena, "Look at that. We fooled them." Elena elbowed him. "You're enjoying this way too much." They helped set up booths and joined games, tug-of-war, sack races, painting contests. In one photo, Damien held Milo in one arm and Elena's waist with the other. It felt dangerously natural. During the sack race, they had to jump as a team. Damien hoisted the burlap sack like it weighed nothing and guided them to victory. When they crossed the finish line, the crowd erupted in applause. Milo laughed wildly, hugging them both. Later, as they sat on the grass eating ice cream, Milo asked a question that caught them both off guard. "Can Uncle Damien be my dad?" Elena froze. Her spoon dropped into her cup. "Milo," she began, but Damien cut in gently. "Only if your mom agrees." Elena turned sharply toward him, eyes flashing. "Don't joke like that." "I'm not," he said softly. "He's already calling me dad when no one's listening." "I think I like it." "Damien," she warned, "don't give him hope if you don't mean it." "I do mean it, but maybe you're the one who doesn't." She didn't answer. The words sat too heavily in her throat. She couldn't deny the way he had changed. The small things, the big things. The way he tied Milo's shoelaces. The way he laughed now without a hint of cruelty. That evening, as they returned home, Estelle met them at the door. "Did you win any hearts today?" she asked with a knowing smile. Damien picked Milo up and spun him gently. "1 or 2. Elena walked past, pretending not to hear. Her heart was already beating too fast. That night, as she folded laundry, Milo climbed into her lap. "Mom, I want to live here forever." She kissed his head. "We'll stay as long as it feels like home. Even if Damien becomes my real dad." Elena swallowed hard. "Let's see what tomorrow brings, okay?" Because for the first time in a long time, tomorrow wasn't something to fear. It was something to hope for. The wind outside had shifted. Elena could feel it in the way Damien looked at her now, not with annoyance or mischief, but with something quieter, deeper. He no longer rolled his eyes when she spoke. Instead, he listened. He didn't just show up for Milo, he stayed. He helped with homework. He made breakfast on Saturdays, even if it was just slightly burned toast and uneven scrambled eggs. Something about it all terrified her. She hadn't asked for a fairy tale, and she didn't trust them. That made what happened one rainy evening even more confusing. Milo was napping, Estelle was out at her book club, and Elena was changing the sheets in Damien's room. Something she'd started doing weekly after he'd left a note saying, "If you're going to invade, at least do it properly." She was halfway through fluffing a pillow when the bathroom door opened behind her, steam rolling out. Damien stepped out, his hair wet, a towel slung low around his waist. His body was lean, muscular, glistening with droplets. "Oh my God," Elena blurted, eyes darting away. Damien grinned. "You want to touch it?" Her jaw dropped. "Excuse me?" "My abs," he said, patting them. "You've been staring like a hungry cat." She scoffed, but he stepped closer, heart in his throat. "Go ahead, I won't bite." With hesitant fingers, she reached out. The moment her hand brushed his stomach, he shuddered. Elena swallowed hard. "You're dangerous," he whispered. "That's just your touch." "What if?" "Then don't hold back," she said before she could stop herself. He kissed her, desperate and soft all at once. Their mouths met like fire and silk. Elena moaned, gripping his shoulders, and Damien wrapped his arms around her, pulling her onto the bed. The towel slipped and her breath hitched. "It's... wow," she said, blushing. "You did this," he said with a crooked smile. "Then let me fix it." There were no words after that, just skin, breath, and the weight of years of longing neither of them had wanted to admit. For Elena, it was her first time. She'd never trusted anyone enough before. Damien sensed it too. When she winced, he froze. "You're a virgin?" She nodded quickly, embarrassed. "I'll stop," he said gently. "No," she whispered. "Just go slow. I want this." Damien nodded, kissed her forehead, and made love to her with a tenderness that surprised them both. He held her like she was made of glass, yet kissed her like he needed her more than air. Afterwards, sweat-drenched and tangled in the sheets, they lay silently. She rested her head against his chest, eyes half closed. "I need to tell you something," she said, voice low. Damien turned his head to look at her. "Milo's not my son, he's my nephew. My sister, she died after finding out the man she loved had a wife and kids. She couldn't take the stress, so I raised him." Damien didn't speak for a long time. Then he wrapped his arms tighter around her. "You didn't have to tell me that, but thank you. I get it now, why you're so guarded." "I'm used to doing everything alone," she said. "No one's ever stayed." "Well," he murmured, "get used to it. I'm not going anywhere." "You promise?" "Not just promise," he said, sitting up slightly and kissing her knuckles. "Let's make it official." She stared at him, stunned. "What?" "Let's get married, Elena. You, me, and Milo. Let's stop pretending." Tears pricked her eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," she laughed through the tears. "Yes, Damien, I'll marry you." He grinned and pulled her close again. "One more round?" "Be gentle," she whispered. "The dragon's still sleepy." They both jumped when they heard Milo calling from the hallway. "Mom? Dad?" Panic hit. Clothes flew. They scrambled to dress. "Coming!" Elena yelled, mortified. The doorknob turned, then stopped. "I think they're busy," Estelle said to Milo through the door, barely holding in her laughter. Elena covered her face. "We're dead." Damien chuckled. "No, we're just officially a family now. She caught us. No going back." Elena looked at him, cheeks blazing, and smiled despite herself. She wasn't running anymore. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains, bathing the room in a soft, golden glow. Elena sat up slowly, stretching, her hand instinctively resting on her belly. Damien was already downstairs. She could hear his voice faintly, teasing Milo, probably helping with breakfast, though he was hopeless with toast. The house felt different now, not just because of what had happened between them, but because it felt like theirs, like a home. Weeks passed in a blur. Estelle beamed every time she looked at them. She had started calling Elena her favorite daughter-in-law, though no ceremony had yet happened. Damien was doting in the strangest ways, bringing her weird food combinations, calling 3 doctors if she so much as sneezed, and rubbing her back even when she didn't ask. Still, Elena couldn't help but feel off. She was irritable, crying over commercials and throwing up every morning. At first, she thought it was just nerves, this whole engagement, the sudden shift from struggle to stability. But one afternoon, as she sat poking at a bowl of rice, Estelle gave her a long look. "You're glowing, but not in a good way. Go take a test." "I'm not." Elena started to protest. "You're 2 months late, darling." Elena froze. Her heart pounded as she stood up and rushed to the bathroom. An hour later, she sat on the edge of the tub, hands trembling, a little pink plus sign mocking her from the counter. She was pregnant. Damien found her sitting on their bed, silent, staring at the wall. "Elena?" he asked, concerned. "What's wrong?" She handed him the test. For a second, he just stared. Then his face split into a grin so wide it nearly broke his face. "We're having a baby?" he breathed. "I think so," she whispered. "We should go to the doctor." "Right now," he said, already reaching for his shoes. At the clinic, the doctor confirmed what the test had only hinted at. 8 weeks along, strong heartbeat, everything healthy. Damien was beside himself, hugging the doctor, spinning Milo in the air outside the waiting room. That night, they celebrated at a fancy restaurant Estelle booked. Elena was mortified by the way Damien hovered over her. "Damien, I'm pregnant, not glass. I'm just being careful," he said, pulling out her chair. "There's a tiny human in there. A human I helped create. You act like I did it alone." "No way, I was very involved," he said with a wink. Milo leaned close. Mom has a baby in her belly, he whispered, eyes wide. Yes, Elena said with a smile. You're going to be a big brother. His eyes lit up like 1,000 stars. Can it come out tomorrow? They laughed, even Estelle. Not quite, sweetheart, she said. It takes a while to grow. Over the next few months, the family transformed. Damien, surprisingly, spent more time at home than in meetings. He left early, returned sooner, and when he was away, he called non-stop. Elena's cravings were unpredictable. Fish sauce at 2 a.m., mangoes dipped in soy sauce, peanut butter on garlic toast. Damien got it all without flinching, sometimes with a nose pinch, but never with a complaint. One morning, after returning from a supply run, he found Elena in the kitchen, belly now a perfect round globe, wearing one of his oversized shirts and sipping tea. Hey, he said softly, how's my queen? Tired, heavy, hungry, irritated, in love. He smiled and walked over, kneeling before her. That makes two of us. Just then her face twisted in discomfort. I think it's time. They barely made it to the hospital. Labor was fast and fierce. Damien didn't leave her side once, not even when she nearly broke his fingers. When the baby's first cry pierced the air, tears ran down his face as if they'd been waiting his whole life to fall. It's a girl, the doctor said, placing the baby on Elena's chest. She sobbed, touching the tiny fingers. She's perfect. Later, when Damien cradled their daughter, Milo tiptoed into the room and climbed onto the bed beside Elena. Mom, she's small, he whispered. She'll grow. Like me? Exactly like you. Damien sat beside them, wrapping one arm around her, the other holding the baby. I've never loved anything like this, he said. Elena looked at them, her son, her daughter, and the man who had turned his life around for all of them, and knew, without doubt, that she had everything she'd ever dreamed of. Home wasn't a place anymore. It was Damien. It was Milo. And now it was the baby girl sleeping in her arms. Her family was finally whole. Life lesson from Shelter in the Storm. This story reminds us that love, in its purest form, isn't about grand gestures or perfect beginnings. It's about showing up even when it's hard. Elena's journey teaches us that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet resolve to keep going, to protect, and to love without conditions. And Damien's transformation shows us that no one is beyond redemption. When given the right reasons, even the most broken hearts can learn how to heal, to love, and to lead. The bond between Elena, Damien, and Milo wasn't born out of convenience. It was forged through shared pain, honesty, sacrifice, and above all, choice. They chose each other when it mattered most. Family isn't always who you're born with. It's who stands by you when the world turns its back. In a time when people often chase perfection, this story shows us that imperfection can be beautiful, that a man with flaws can become a loving father, that a woman who suffered can rise with grace, and that a child, even born into loss, can grow up surrounded by warmth and hope. So wherever you are in life, struggling, healing, growing, remember, love is not about where you start, but how you grow together. And sometimes, the family you need is waiting in the most unexpected place. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enjoy more heartfelt African stories like this one.